All right, great. We're going to get started here in just a minute. Again, wanted to thank everybody for joining us this morning. I hope everybody is healthy out there. I hope we all hoping this pandemic is coming to a close. I hope. I know everybody out there feels the same way. So what we're going to talk about today is something that we've heard a lot from our clients, definitely recently, over the past few months, about how to track and maintain employee productivity while working remotely. While I do think that I've seen definitely a shift for employees to come back to the office, um, we still definitely have a large number of clients who are still, either still working remotely or in that hybrid mode where they're coming into the office a couple of days, they're working from home a couple of days, and they want to make sure they maintain employee productivity. And the tool I'm going to show you is going to allow us to help that. We also have a bunch of clients that are using this tool while also um, having their clients, having their employees in the office. So it's not just a remote only tool. It is just a tool to use to look at employee productivity. And when I talk about employee productivity, I'm talking about, you know, not so much how long they're working on the computer, but more so about what tools are they using? How long are they spending in time in applications? What applications are they using most? What websites are they using most? Do they have the appropriate tools to do their job day in and day out? And that's really what we're going to focus, and this tool is going to focus on today. So let me share out my screen. The tool we use is a tool called ActivTrak. Some of you may have seen it. This is a tool that has definitely come on the scene over the past year or so, definitely with pandemic in mind. Again, the ability to keep track of employee time, what they're doing, the applications that they're looking for, what the applications that they're working on, how much time they're spending in applications. We've also seen a shift in people's hours. I know that we've used this tool to demonstrate that um, the workday has slightly changed. We've seen some people who are starting much earlier, taking a break to get their kids on the bus, to take a break when their kids are home, and then logging back on at night to complete their day. So we have seen a big shift in that, in what the actual workday is. So I'm going to show you how we use this tool. I'm actually showing you our instance of this tool, how we have it set up, and the different functions on this tool. I will open it up for questions later, so at the end. So if you do have any questions, you can pop them in the chat. But let's get started. So when you log into this tool, you're going to get a dashboard. And the dashboard is basically what they call the pulse, right? So the pulse, the way we have it structured is we have it broken out into our different teams, right? So we have, we have a web team, we have an admin team, we have a sales team, we have an escalation team, and within each team, we have assigned employees. So I'm going to focus on the sales team today. So again, if I click on the sales team, it's going to bring me down into the users that we have assigned into the sales team. And keep in mind that it is a web browser, so it does take a little bit of time to refresh. So here's the sales team, right? And it's basically showing us that so far, what is their day like? So I'm just looking at today as the example. And so far, looking at Anthony, Brian, and Peter, what their productivity rate is, right? So how do we get their productivity rate, right? So the productivity rate is based upon the settings that you put in, right? So what I mean by that is, if you're looking at an application like Microsoft Outlook, Microsoft Excel, those are applications that we classify as productive. A website that is used for us, maybe like hp.com, is also productive. However, a website like Facebook or Amazon or things like that would be not productive websites, so they would not count towards their productive score. Okay, so again, I'm going to use Pete as the example here. You can actually see by looking at them what they are actually working on when I clicked into the pulse, right? So you can see Brian, he's working on a tool called ConnectWise, which we use. You can see Anthony's working in a program called Cell, which we use, and Peter just happens to be passive right now in Microsoft Outlook. Okay, so again, the beauty about this tool that I find is that you get a really big dashboard. So you don't have to go searching for employee productivity. You don't have to go searching to see, what exactly is Peter doing? What exactly is Anthony doing? With a click of a button, I can see, exactly what they're working on, right? So again, I'm going to come back to the dashboard for a second. All right. I'm going to expand this out because I'm going to show you a couple of the options here. So I'm just showing you today. I can show yesterday. I can show the last 7 days. I can show the last 30 days. I can show this week. So I have a bunch of filters up here that I can use. So let's take a look at this week. And you can see I have all users set up. So again, I don't have to set up all users. I can specify the team that I have. So I'm going to pick the sales team. Or if I want, I can specify an individual user. So I'm going to pick the sales team. And you can see, so far, I have it for this week. The number of hours that people have put in. So as far as productivity time, and you can see all these graphs that we have and nice little visualizations, right? And we can see, Peter's basically, how much productivity time he has. So he's got 11 hours. Brian's got 10. Anthony's got 3. And again, the reason why I wanted to show this was because the difference between Peter and Anthony. So Peter was in the office, this is yesterday, right? So this is this week. So he was in the office the majority of the day working from his laptop. Anthony, I know, was on the road. So he was in the car for a bunch of hours yesterday. So that's why his productivity is lower. And I think that's a key aspect is when you just look at these graphs and these numbers, it's not necessarily a direct reflection as to how much the employee is working, right? Because obviously Anthony, who was traveling from one site to another yesterday, he is working, but he was not working at his computer at the time. Okay, so those are some things that you have to factor in when you're looking at an employee's productivity rate. Somebody who's on the phone a lot, may not have a higher productivity rate because, I'm not tracking the user's phone usage. Somebody who's, on their cell phone constantly, on a job site, things along that nature may or may not come across as, a productivity rate. So then we can scroll down and look at some of the other graphs that we have. So we can look and we can see where are they spending the time in the applications, right? So we can look and we can see, hey, look, Microsoft Outlook is a big part of it, right? We use, like I said, this tool called ConnectWise, Microsoft Teams, right? So funny thing is I thought Teams would be much higher than 15%, but and then we can look at websites as well. So LinkedIn is definitely one of the biggest ones. We use a cell called Quozel. This is a door access tool we use. This is a reporting tool we can use. So you can see that number of websites that we're using, okay? If we scroll down a little further, we can classify the tools that people are using and the websites. So we have them classified as, office tools, admin and IT tools, chat and messaging tools, HR, sales, system processing, and so forth. And all of these we can classify. So if you were an organization that does construction, you may want to put down, this may be a procurement site. This may be a tool that we use for drawings and so on and so forth. So you may be able to categorize these a little differently. On the right-hand side here, we can see that, hey, look, there are some tools that we need to classify, right? So there's this tool called BrightGauge that we use, right? It is currently unclassified, and I left it like this for a reason. So I can come in here and I can select a category, and this is going to be analytics, and I'm going to classify it as productive. So now what happens is the next time this tool runs, this will now, notice that it will be classified as analytics under productive. This is another tool that we use. I'm going to put it as admin, and I'm going to click on make productive, and now it's classified. Okay, so that's how easy it is to look and classify tools, right, and websites when you're looking at them right here from the dashboard. Okay, coming back up here. So you can see there are all these different types of filters that we have. We can look at this week. We can look at individual users. I can print the pages. If I make some changes to it, I want to refresh it, I can refresh this. And now you can see the changes that may or may not have happened based upon the classifications that we made. Okay. All right, rolling over to the dashboard here on the left-hand side. So we have some reports. I'm going to show you some alarms. I'm going to show you what the team pulse, which is something new that they pulled together, and we'll take the next steps here. So if I come down here to team pulse, I'm going to refresh it to everybody once again. And now what this is doing is this is pulling everybody in the company into, one direct view, right? So the good thing about this too, right, you can see all the users that we have set up on this and exactly what they are doing, what their productivity rates are. Everybody's looks like they're coming in at 100% so far this morning, which is great. And what they're exactly working on. So this gives you a really good example as to, what are employees working on? What tools are they using? Do I have somebody that, maybe has not checked in this morning or things along that nature, okay? If I want to, I can drill down into an individual user as well, right? So if I want to drill down into Dimitri as the example, I can come down and I can see all the things that Dimitri is working on, right? So all the different things that Dimitri has clicked on so far today, right? And this gives me the ability to, look at exactly what Dimitri is working on, the tools that he's using. I can specify and change columns. I can move columns around if I want. So this is all very flexible. I can export the report if I want to export it into a PDF. If I want to export certain pages, I can do that. If I want to change the user, and I'm picking on Peter today, so I'm just going to use Peter as the example. Oh, I'm sorry, because the user's in there. There's Peter. And then if I want to change it, if I just want to look at Peter yesterday, I can come in here and look in here. So again, it gives you really a lot of flexibility in here to look at see what the users are using, how they're using it. I don't promote this tool as a way to track, make sure that your employees are working, because I think that for the most part, in all of our organizations, the employees are working, right, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. We really utilize this tool to make sure that they have the tools available to them, and we want to make sure that they have them available, and we want to know what applications the users are using. And I showed you a graph before that, inside our team, we were about 15% inside of Teams. If you would have asked me that yesterday, I probably would have said it's more like 20 to 25% because we do use Teams a lot. All right, so let me come back here to the pulse. Again, I'm looking at Peter as the example. There's a couple of different views here. So if I look at the extended view, and I'm going to look at the screen view. So what the screen view will tell you is exactly what is on the user screen at that example time. And the good thing about this too is you can set up the tool to record as well. So we have run into scenarios where we needed to check exactly what tools that a user was using over a period of time. And we did that by just capturing screenshots, and screenshots just happen, and we're able to look at that through a video and just like screen clips to see what the user is doing over a period of time. And that is available to do that here in this tool as well. I'm going to come back in here to groups. So the other thing you can do in here is that it doesn't have to be top level. So what I mean by that is it doesn't have to be one or two people looking down at each department and so on and so forth. So what I mean by that is if I look at Team Jamie, Jamie actually has the ability to come into this tool and look at the team below him, right? So Jamie can come in and look at Kevin, he can look at Rose, he can look at Joe, and he can look to see how well his team is doing. He doesn't have access to see the other teams. He only has access to see his team, right? As an admin, of course, you can see across multiple teams. As a manager, if you wanted it and you manage certain teams, you can see across multiple teams at one time. So again, this gives you a nice little view as to how well your team is doing, their productivity rate, and what they're working on. So I'm going to come over here into reports, show you some example of some reports that we have in here. So we're going to look at top users. I'm going to change Pete out, and I'm going to give me all users here. And as soon as this populates, this is going to come up. So it's showing me Tom is my top user for yesterday. Tom worked a lot yesterday. He worked about 17 hours. I know he's working on a project. Brian worked 11 hours and so on and so forth. So we had a bunch of users, and you can show exactly how many users they're working. It will show you how many hours they are productive, how many hours they aren't productive, and if so, any time that we currently do not have defined as of yet. So let me find Pete again as the example. So I'm going to come down here. And when you click on Pete, this is going to show me my graph, right? My timeline, right? So I can look and I can see, hey, Peter started his day probably about, 7:55. He logged on to Teams, and that's how he started his day. He signed off, around 5:20 for the day, right? And this gives you a little break, right? So this could probably show his lunch hour that he took between 11:30 and say 12. And again, it shows you in basically 5-minute clips of what he's working on every part of the day. And then it will show you the unproductive time as well. So if we look at this, and I always use Pete as the example in this because, Pete's one of our salespeople here, and Pete utilizes Newsday to figure out what companies are moving so he can call upon them. So when Pete looks at Newsday, I know I leave this classified as unproductive for these demos because even though I do consider this productive because I know what Pete's working on, we do have newsday.com as unproductive. So you can see how it shows on the graph, right? And then, and again, we can look at each user. If I take a look at, find a user, and we'll use Brian as the example. All right, so here's Brian, towards the end of his day looking at Facebook, right? So again, 11 minutes of unproductive time out of an 8-hour day, I think that's a pretty good day, right? So again, the ability to look and see again when a user started, what time they signed off, and so on and so forth, gives you an idea. And like I said in the beginning of the webinar, is that I definitely have seen in doing this for customers where we have seen people sign on earlier, sign on at 7:30, sign off around 8:30, 8:45 to put their kids on the bus, take a lunch, sign off around 3 o'clock or so, sign back on, later in the evening to complete their day, right? And this is a really good way to show that, right? I have run into scenarios where, they wanted to check to make sure that they were getting the full 8 hours of productivity out of their employees, and this is a way to do it as well, okay? A good report is working hours, right? So this will show whatever happens during the working hours per each user, right? So we can see, as an example, here's using Brian as the example. Yep. First activity around 8:30, last activity at 9:15. Let's find somebody like Nick who signed on a little after 8, ended a little before 7, right? So you can see, this is a really good report to show, what time people are signing on, what time people are signing off. It's also a way to track and to show, our employees being overworked, right? I know I showed you that graph before of Tom working 17 hours, right? So yes, I know Tom is working on a big project for us. I know he started early. I know he ended late. But I also know that I will have Tom take some time off towards the end of the week to make up for that difference, right? So again, you don't want to overwork employees as well. So this tool will show you not only just, if somebody is being unproductive, but just how productive somebody is using as well, okay? Coming over here to websites. Right, so again, you can see, what are the most, active websites, right, that we're using, right? So here we are, right? This is a tool we use internally. So again, that's probably going to be our most active website. We can look at unproductive as well. right? So YouTube, Reddit, Facebook. Somebody obviously has an E-Trade account, so we can look to see the most unproductive websites. The good thing about this is that, again, all of our employees know that this tool is on the tool, right? So they on their machine, so they make sure that they are actually doing productivity work. In working with our customers, we will collectively decide whether or not that is something you're going to inform employees or not. In my opinion, it is something that, they are using your equipment, your internet, your time to during the day. So, you do have the ability to review what they are working on. If I want to come over here, look at tap applications. I'm sorry, let me change this to product right. So here we are, right? So the top applications, right, and what we're using. We've also had a client look at this and they spent some money on an application that they realized that nobody was really using. And when they went back and spoke to the employees of saying, hey, look, we have this application, why is nobody using it? And they came back and said, well, we really didn't get enough training on it. We didn't get enough, it doesn't do exactly what we thought it would do. So now they have the ability to go back and look at that and reevaluate that tool that they're using. We can also look at top categories. So again, here we're admin and IT, right? So that's where our top category are. We got office, we got chat, we got sales, and so on and so forth. So all these reporting is basically available to you. Okay. Activity log is that long log we showed, right? Basically what everybody's been doing. All right, so let's talk about integrations for a second. And then I'll show you basically some alarms we have set up, and then I'll open it up for questions. So when we talk about integrations, right? So this does work with, it does integrate with a couple of different tools, right? So you can have it as a Slack channel, right? You can have it as a Teams channel, right? So we do have some clients that do have it set up in their Teams, the ability to come in here and just look at dashboards inside of Teams. We do have the ability to look at it when you set it up for Power BI for analytics and reporting. It does work if anybody's using Monday. And then obviously you can export the data into SQL and then massage anything you want to do out of that. So lots of integrations. I know the Teams one really, really nice. It works well, especially for those users that are in Teams all day long like us. Gives you the ability to look at the data, look at the dashboard without having to come in here and to log into ActivTrak. Okay. Let's take a look at alarms next. So you do have the ability to set up alarms. So what an alarm would be is something you would consider out of the ordinary, right? So one of the things that we consider out of the ordinary is if we have it set up for running executables, right? So we want to make sure that if somebody's running an executable, we want to be aware of it. So you can see we have that set up so that if somebody is going to run an executable, we want a log of it. So you can see how we have all that set up. That's primarily the one alarm we have set up. You can have alarms set up to where if they are moving a large chunk of data, a whole bunch of files, we can have that as alarm setup. You can have alarm set up if there is an excessive amount of unproductivity time. You can have that set up as well to alert you as well. And again, you can have alarms set up in screenshots and so on and so forth. Okay. I can come down and set up alarm for latest users. I can come down and look at screenshots for the latest users, right? So again, if I look at screenshots, this is good. You basically pull up the screenshot for each user, which may take a little time. I may want to filter this out. Put sales, fresh. Just give this a minute to load. And then I'll open it up for questions. Right, so here's, of course, again, screenshots that we can look at, for users, okay? And again, I want to stress the fact that, again, we don't promote this tool as, a way to track what employees are doing. We really, promote this tool as a way to make sure that, employees are being as productive as they can, whether they are either working remotely, working from home, or hybrid along those nature, okay? So at this point, I will open it up for questions. If anybody has any, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll go from there. I see a couple in there already. First question: what if somebody is using two computers? Yes, it will track time on two computers, so that is possible. So if somebody's using a laptop and a desktop, that is it will track the user's time there. Sometimes you will get an excessive amount of passive time. So in other words, if a user has their laptop up and they have it on, but they're using their desktop, you may see some more passive time because that laptop is just not doing anything. So that's one thing to keep track of when you are reviewing the reports. The other one is, what about people working from home while using LogMeIn or I guess any other remote access tool? So the thing you have to keep in mind here is that, you can't necessarily put this tool on somebody's home or personal machine, right? We don't want to do that. But in this instance, you are going to put the tool on the user's, machine in the office that they're using, LogMeIn or GoToMeeting or something along those lines to log into the machine in the office, and that will track the user's productivity there, right? So even though a user is using a home machine as a way to get into a machine in the office, we still are tracking their productivity time on the machine on the office, and that will give you the correct reporting. Let's see, somebody's asking about pricing. So it is priced per user. There is a minimum of 10 users. So I've seen companies start out with 10 people and then, shift. The good thing about the license is that you can shift it, meaning that I can, have it on Mary's machine, this week. And then if I want to transfer that over to John's machine, next month, I can do that. Just keep in mind is that you'll lose some of that reporting when you make those licensing switches. Somebody else asked, does it integrate with Active Directory? And it does integrate with Active Directory. Anybody have any other questions? So somebody else asked, what if they are using websites from home? I would assume on their home machine. And they're using LogMeIn. So if they're using LogMeIn and they're logging into their machine again and do whatever they're doing on their corporate machine in the office, it will track and mark that time as productive. If they minimize LogMeIn and on their personal machine they are accessing something that may be unproductive, it is not going to track that time. But what will happen is while they are on that unproductive site using their home machine, their corporate machine at this point is now being passive, right? So you'll get that passive mark for as long as that employee is looking at unproductive sites on their personal machine. Anybody have any else before we end for the day? All right. I want to appreciate everybody coming. This is going to be recorded, so I will have it up on the NST YouTube page. So I will send that link out to everybody. If anybody has any questions or wants to talk more about this tool, please feel free to reach out to either your client strategic team, myself. I'm happy to answer any questions. With that being said, I hope everybody stays safe. And thanks again for coming, and keep an eye out for future webinars. Thanks, everyone.